Am I the antagonist for not attending my sister's wedding? My sister and I have always had a complicated relationship. She has always seen me as the favored child due to my good behavior and academic success. I recently earned a PhD, which may have made her envious as she decided to pursue the same path, even though she isn't actually pursuing a PhD herself. This is just one example of our competitive dynamic, which is why I usually keep my personal life to myself. About a year ago, my sister's wedding was called off. Despite our differences, I supported her during this difficult time, and she acknowledged her past shortcomings as a sister, especially during my abusive relationship. Fast forward to today, I have been happily engaged for almost a year and am getting married in 3 months. Strangely, my sister, who was supposed to be my bridesmaid, has not responded to any of my texts or reached out to offer assistance like my other sister and friends have. Then, just a week ago, my sister announced to the family that she is getting married in 2 weeks to a guy she has known for 6 months and is pregnant, which prevents her from being a bridesmaid at my wedding. This was surprising given the sudden nature of these developments. It feels as if she wanted to marry first and was bothered by the fact that I would be getting married before her. I congratulated her on her news, but explained that I couldn't attend her wedding due to the short notice and work deadlines. My fiancé supports this decision, but my sister and some of her friends are portraying me as bitter for not attending. Am I the asshole for not going? Your sister has consistently shown signs of envy and competition with you throughout your lives, and it seems this pattern has continued with your wedding. It's understandable why you would feel hurt and shocked by her sudden marriage announcement that coincides with your own wedding plans. It's also understandable that you couldn't attend her wedding due to work deadlines and short notice. Attending a wedding requires significant time and travel commitments, and it's not feasible for everyone to drop everything and attend on short notice. While it's unfortunate that your sister and some of her friends are portraying you as bitter, it sounds like your family and friends understand and support your decision. Ultimately, you have to prioritize your own well-being and obligations, especially when it comes to work. It's important to recognize that your sister's actions and behavior speak more about her own insecurities and issues rather than anything to do with you. You shouldn't let her actions affect your own happiness or enjoyment of your upcoming wedding. However, it may be worth considering having an open and honest conversation with your sister about how her actions have made you feel. This could potentially lead to a better understanding between the two of you and help improve your relationship. Am I the antagonist for not fighting for my daughter's interests and inheritance? Am I the asshole for refusing to block my coworker's wife on social media just because he asked me to? So last month, I, 30-year-old female, went with my friends, female ages 29, 31, and 33, to the movie theater to watch a concert of my favorite artist. I ran into a coworker, 36-year-old male, and his wife, early 20s. I always thought I got along fine with my coworker, but we're not close friends. I greeted him and he introduced me to his wife. Let's call her Vivian. Later during the concert, keep in mind that while we had assigned seats in the theater, nobody was sitting, it was chaotic, I noticed Vivian was alone. I approached her and asked about my coworker, and she told me he left because he was bored. I felt bad for her, so I invited her to join our group. She ended up spending the rest of the concert with us, and afterward we all went to have dinner. We bonded with Vivian over our love for the artist, and by the end of the night, we all ended up adding her on social media. That was the only time I've seen her in person, and our interaction on social media is limited to tagging each other, and the rest of the group, in news about the artist we both love. This Sunday, she posted pictures of a batch of cookies she made. I commented that they looked delicious, and she messaged me saying she had made a lot of cookies and offered to send me some through my coworker. I saw no issue with this, so I accepted. Well, my coworker gave me the cookies yesterday and expressed his dislike for the fact that Vivian and I have kept in touch. He demanded that I block her and never speak to her again. This caught me off guard, because we've always been polite to each other, and I can't think of a reason why he would want me to block his wife. I have a good reputation at work and I'm not someone who causes problems. I don't involve myself in office gossip either, so he doesn't need to worry that I'll spill secrets. Also, I'm not interested in pursuing a romantic relationship with Vivian. I'm heterosexual and not a homewrecker. I was taken aback and didn't have a good response at the moment, so I told him that he doesn't have the right to dictate my actions, that I won't block someone just because he said so, and that if he has a problem, he should discuss it with his wife. Now, I'm questioning whether I handled the situation correctly. Maybe I was too harsh and should have communicated with him about it. Maybe I'm causing unnecessary drama. Am I the asshole? You are not in the wrong for refusing to block Vivian just because your coworker told you to. It's important to set boundaries and not let others dictate who you can and cannot have a relationship with, especially if there is no legitimate reason for concern. Your coworker's request seems unreasonable and controlling. If he has issues with his wife having a friendship with you, it should be something he discusses with her directly, rather than putting the responsibility on you to cut off contact. You handled the situation well by asserting your autonomy and standing up for yourself. It's possible that your coworker may have underlying issues in his relationship with Vivian, but that is not your responsibility to address. It's great that you have the support of your friends in this matter, and creating a separate communication platform to maintain contact with Vivian is a sensible idea. Trust your instincts and continue treating Vivian with respect unless she requests otherwise. Am I the antagonist for not letting my maid of honor choose her dress? I'm 32, getting married in August. My best friend Chrissy, fake name 30, agreed to be my maid of honor and seemed really excited for me. I told her I wanted my colors to be dark green and pale pink, and she agreed it was a really pretty combination. So when we were dress shopping, she kept picking out green dresses. I told her I wanted her to wear pink instead. She was disappointed and said she doesn't like pink and would probably not buy a dress from the store we were at if it wasn't in a color she liked, because the boutique was pricey. I can understand that, so I just asked that she find an appropriate dress in the specific shade of pink I like. Since then, she has been sending me links to dresses that are not close to the color at all, and green ones with pink floral. She made a comment about how when I was her maid of honor a few years ago, she let me buy a dress I've worn multiple times since. This pissed me off because her colors were navy and silver, so of course the blue dress she wanted me to buy is more versatile. But it's my turn now, and I think the dress is a standard part of the maid of honor role. It's making me think she's not going to be a good maid of honor to me. I mentioned this to my sister and she said I was being a bridezilla. She reminded me that Chrissy was a really relaxed bride, and that we obviously have different expectations about wedding roles and need to talk it out. I know she's probably right, but I'm upset that she thinks I'm being a bridezilla. Chrissy's wedding was a lot different than what I would have picked for myself. It was really casual and had a lot of cutesy homemade elements. My style is more elegant and classy, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. When I first started talking to Chrissy about my wedding plans, she kept reminding me that it's one day and just a party and stuff like that. But I have dreamed about this day since I was little. I feel like Chrissy doesn't understand how important it is to me that my day is picture perfect, because she admitted getting married wasn't ever really important to her. My fiancé says he understands why I'm upset, my sister says I suck, and Chrissy hasn't texted me back since I shot down the last few dresses she sent me. So am I the antagonist? It seems like you're getting caught up in the idea of having a picture-perfect day and expecting your maid of honor to conform to your specific desires. While it's understandable that you have a vision for your wedding, it's not fair to force someone else to wear a color they don't like just because you prefer it. It's your wedding, but it's also important to consider the preferences and comfort of your loved ones. Your friend Chrissy has been supportive throughout the wedding planning process, except when it comes to the color of her dress. She even went as far as sending you options, although they weren't exactly what you wanted. Instead of appreciating her efforts, you shot down her choices without much consideration. Just because you bought a versatile dress for her wedding doesn't mean she has to repay the favor in the exact same way. Weddings should be about celebrating love and unity, not dictating what others wear to fit your dream aesthetic. Instead of trying to control every little detail, why not have a conversation with Chrissy to find a compromise that works for both of you? Remember, your maid of honor is there to support you, and it's essential to value her opinions and preferences as well. Am I the antagonist for telling my sister and brother-in-law they can't stay with us for 2 weeks? My sister and brother-in-law live in a different state and are planning a trip to visit us for the holidays. They mentioned a while ago during a Zoom call that they were thinking of staying for 2 weeks. My wife and I were surprised by the length of the trip but didn't say anything at the time. Weeks passed, and we hadn't heard any updates. We assumed they were still figuring out their travel plans. Finally, I texted them to discuss their December trip. They responded by asking if there were any questions they could answer. I asked if they had already bought their tickets and when they planned to arrive. It turned out that they had already purchased tickets and were planning to stay at our house for 2 weeks. They had not consulted with us about the dates or checked if it was convenient for us. Upon learning that they had already made arrangements, I mentioned that the time frame should work for us, but we needed to sort out the details. Both my wife and I agreed that having visitors stay with us for 2 weeks was a lot, especially considering our work schedules and our children's school commitments. As a compromise, we suggested they stay with us for 9 days while we were off from work, and our kids were not in school. For the remaining days of their visit, they could stay with our parents, my brother-in-law's mom, friends, or other nearby family members. During that time, I would return to work, the kids would go back to school, and my wife would use the last few days of her break to prepare for work or spend time with her family. We offered to meet up for dinners or activities on the weekends. However, my sister disagreed and believed that it made more sense for them to stay with us for the entire 2 weeks, using our house as a base while they visited other family and friends. She dismissed our offer of 9 dedicated days together and argued that they were self-sufficient guests who wouldn't require much of our help. Nonetheless, we would still need to plan our kids' schedules around their visit, keep the house clean, ensure we had enough groceries and toiletries, and accommodate their late-night arrivals without disturbing our children. She claimed that rescheduling and rearranging plans with others would be inconvenient for them, as they had made assumptions about staying with us. She made me feel guilty for putting them in this predicament. In summary, my sister and brother-in-law assumed they could stay with us for 2 weeks without checking with us. They are now upset that I told them 9 days would work best for my family. Am I in the wrong here? Your sister and brother-in-law made a decision about the length of their trip without consulting you or considering your family's schedule and preferences. It is understandable that you and your wife felt caught off guard and needed time to discuss your availability and comfort with such a long visit. You proposed a compromise of hosting them for 9 days when you and your kids are off from work and school, which seems reasonable. You also suggested they stay with other nearby family members or friends for the remainder of their trip. This allows you to balance your family's needs and gives your sister and brother-in-law the chance to spend time with other loved ones too. Your sister's insistence on staying for the full 2 weeks, despite your valid concerns and compromise, is dismissive of your feelings and the effort required to host guests for an extended period. It is unfair for her to guilt you by claiming inconvenience with rescheduling plans made without your knowledge. It's essential to have open and honest communication about expectations when it comes to visitation and hosting. Your sister should have checked in with you before finalizing their plans, and you did the right thing by expressing your concerns and proposing a compromise. Am I the antagonist for telling my sister she's the reason I hardly know her kids? My sister and I have never been very close. As children, we got along fine, but she was 2 years older and always acted like she knew everything, which could be very annoying. As teenagers, we didn't interact much. In our early 20s, we tried to become closer, but she still treated me as someone much younger instead of a sister with just a 2-year age gap. We had some more issues when I got married first, and didn't inform her about my first miscarriage until a couple of years later. Coincidentally, my sister and I ended up getting pregnant at the same time, with her due 4 weeks ahead of me. Unfortunately, my daughter was stillborn 2 days before she gave birth. She came to the hospital and offered support, but her comments were very insensitive. She told me to focus on the positive and that her baby would be born soon, becoming a celebration for the family. She even showed up in my hospital room on the day her oldest daughter was born, 3 days after I lost my daughter. When I asked her to leave, she refused, claiming that being around her niece would help me heal. It took my husband calling a nurse to get her to leave. I was devastated and unable to feel happy about seeing my niece. Over the next 2 months, my sister tried hard to make me spend time with her and her oldest daughter, urging me to focus on them. She went on to have 3 more daughters in the following years. But because of my own recurring miscarriages, I avoided any family gatherings where she would be present. Every time we were in the same place, she felt the need to tell me that I could overcome my own losses by being with her kids, often pointing out that I didn't need to be a mother because I had her girls. Despite numerous requests from me, my husband, and our brother for her to stop, she never did. If anything, she became more insensitive as time passed. She even suggested that I shouldn't feel so much sadness and grief when her children were alive. It was too overwhelming for me, and I reached my breaking point. I lashed out at her once, but she acted like it never happened and continued to insist that her kids should be enough for me. With a lot of support, I became pregnant again earlier this year, and my son was recently born. However, my sister took it upon herself to criticize me for missing out on a decade with her kids and questioned how I could justify not knowing my own flesh and blood, especially now that I finally had my own child. She called me selfish, and I snapped back, telling her that she was the reason for my distance and accusing her of being insensitive and cruel for repeatedly disregarding my boundaries and pushing her children on me when I was grieving and unable to fill the void with them. She still believed her kids were more than enough and accused me of being the selfish one. Am I the asshole? Your sister has been consistently insensitive and disrespectful towards your grief and boundaries. It is understandable that you did not want to spend time with her children during a time when you were grieving and struggling with your own losses. It is not fair for her to expect you to replace your own pain and longing for a child with her children. Your sister should have respected your wishes and given you the space and understanding you needed. Am I the antagonist for turning on a light while my husband was in bed? Twice? For some background information, my husband Dan, who is 39 years old, and I, who is 34 years old, both wake up at 5:30 a.m. and commute to work together. We have a large senior dog named Lou, who is 15 years old and currently experiencing health issues. Lou receives a pain pill every other night with dinner but did not receive one on Wednesday night. Additionally, his bladder control is not as good as it used to be. On Friday morning, I was awakened by Lou coming up to my side of the bed, which is unusual for him. I immediately knew that he needed to go outside. Still feeling groggy, I quickly got out of bed, feeling a bit frantic because I knew that once he signals he needs to go out, there isn't much time before he loses control. Dan, who was still half asleep, asked me what was happening. I apologized and explained that I needed to turn on a light so I could see to let Lou out and check for any messes along the way. I turned on the bathroom light, which primarily illuminates the hallway, but also provides some light to the bedroom. On my way out, I glanced at the clock and saw that it was 3:55 a.m. As soon as Lou went outside, he relieved himself. When he came back inside, I noticed that he was swaying and trembling. Lou and I both returned to bed, knowing that Dan was still awake. I asked him if he had given Lou his pills with dinner the night before, since he was the one who fed Lou. He admitted that he had not given Lou his pills. I expressed my concern, stating, "Dan, he can't skip 2 days, he's in pain." However, Dan simply responded with, "Okay, can I go back to sleep now?" Naturally, I got out of bed again to give Lou his pills to ensure his comfort. I went to the kitchen, prepared the pills with pill pockets, and returned to the bedroom to give them to Lou. At this point, I turned the bathroom light back on to make sure that Lou didn't spit out the pills. Dan, clearly annoyed, asked, "What's going on? Can you turn the freaking light off?" This further irritated me, and I told him that I had to give Lou his pills because he failed to do so. I emphasized that our dog is in pain, so he could handle the extra minute this was taking. Lou ate the pills, and I turned off the light before returning to bed. It's important to note that this entire sequence of events took only a few minutes. From that moment on, Dan loudly sighed and tossed and turned for the rest of the morning. As a result, neither of us managed to fall back asleep. It felt as if he was throwing a toddler tantrum. The following day, he complained about the light being on for too long. I apologized and assured him that I would try to be quicker if a similar situation occurred again, but I also requested that he try to be more understanding. This morning, Lou needed to go out at 4 a.m. This time, he was trying to wake Dan on his side of the bed. However, Dan had a lot of clutter on his side, so I had to turn on the bathroom light once again to help Lou navigate through the mess. I apologized for turning on the light and explained that it was only for a brief period of time, less than 10 seconds, to guide Lou safely out of the room. We returned to bed, but the same process repeated, and we couldn't fall back asleep. Now, Dan's complaint is that the light was on at all. He suggested that I use my phone flashlight instead next time. Feeling frustrated, I told him that he should take care of it himself next time, instead of throwing tantrums and keeping both of us awake. Does this make me the asshole? You're clearly doing your best to take care of your senior dog's needs, including administering his medication when your husband failed to do so. Turning on the light for a few seconds to prevent accidents and guide your dog out of your husband's cluttered side of the bed is a reasonable and necessary action. Your husband's reaction of sighing, tossing and turning, and complaining about the light being on shows a lack of empathy and understanding. He should be more supportive and cooperative during this difficult time for your pet. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.